Hi Year 9, this is me going through in a bit of detail the answers to exercise 2. So this is if you've got any of them wrong and you just think, well, I don't know how to do these ones. So I'm going to go through 1 to 21, so you may not need all of those, but okay, off we go. So I've got them set out, so hopefully I shouldn't take too long. So I'm looking for two numbers times together to make 12, added together to make 7. So it sounds like it's got to be 4 and 3, and then of course this equals 0 or this equals 0, so x would have to be minus 4 or x equals minus 3. Next one, x squared add x take away 6 equals 0, so times in together to make minus 6, added together to make a positive 1. So that sounds like a 3 and a minus 2, and then remember that equals 0 or this equals 0, so we say x equals minus 3 or x equals 2. Next one, times together to make 21, added together to make 10. That sounds like 7 and 3. Nice easy one, that one, isn't it? So that equals 0. I'm just looking how dirty my pen look. That's just from my pencil case. That equals 0 or this equals 0. So x is minus 7 or x is minus 3. Moving on, x squared add 2x add 1 equals 0. Well, in fact, you need times together to make 1, added together to make 2. So you need x add 1, x add 1. So I could have put two brackets, x add 1, x add 1. But in fact, I could just write x add 1 squared. So x needs to be minus 1. So you don't have two solutions there. There's only one solution on that one. Question 5. This is one of those where you can take x out as a factor, and then you're left with x take 3. So remember that could equal 0 or this equals 0. So x equals 0 or x equals 3. A common mistake some people do on 5, 6, 7 type questions is they divide by x. And if you divide by x at the start, you lose one of your solutions. So don't divide by x ever. X squared adds 7x equals 0. You can take x out of as a factor. You'll be left with x add 7. So x equals 0 because that's on its own, because this times this equals 0, or x equals minus 7. Here I can take 2x out as a factor, so I'm left with x take away 1. So either that equals 0, well, if 2x is a 0, x must still be 0, or this equals 0, so x is 1. Question 8, that's the first one. We've got a difference of two squares. Hopefully you spotted that. So remember, with difference of two squares, we square root the x, so x and x, and we square root this number, and we have a positive 7 and a negative 7 here. And then you basically put that equal to 0 or this equal to 0, so you have minus 7 or positive 7. Question 9. Okay, so I've rearranged it. Imagine I've moved take away 4x across. So these now I've got to rearrange. I think later on you've got to start rearranging them. So x squared take away 4x equals 0, but I've just moved it onto the left hand side. Take x out as a factor. You've got x take 4. So then you've got x equals 0 or x equals 4. So once you've rearranged it, that one's a lot like these ones here. Okay, now this one's a bit harder, isn't it? So this is going back to the work we did on factorising. So remember how we do these horrible ones. You think of two numbers times together that make 10 times minus 3, which is minus 30, added together to make minus 1. Well, I can hear in my head that's got to be minus 6 and 5. But remember, that's not what goes in the brackets. That's just how you split up this minus x. I'm not showing you all my working because you did it back in October, November. But, you know, you'd have minus 6 and 5x. And then you have that imaginary line and you factorise the left-hand side, factorise the right-hand side. So I think I split it up into 10x squared, take 6x, add 5x, take 3. And then that factorises to So I've got my working on another bit of paper here, but you'll have to look back at this if you've forgotten how to do these harder ones. So let's just double check that works. So that's 10x squared minus 6, add 5x, take away 3. So that's equal to 0. So now that has to equal 0, which means 2x's are equal to minus 1, which means x must be minus a half. These are harder now, aren't they? And this one here, 5x would have to equal 3, wouldn't it, for that to equal 0. So if 5x's are 3, x equals 3/5. Next one, another hard one to factorise. I'm tising 12 and 5 together to get 60, and then I'm thinking, what two numbers times together to make 60, but add together to make minus 16? Can you hear? It's minus 10 and minus 6. But that is not what goes in your brackets. That's just how I split that up. So I'm looking at another bit of paper. So I split it up into 12y squared, take 10y, take 6y, add 5 equals 0. And then I factorise that separately. And you finally end up with 2y take 1, 6y take 5. I can double check, that's 12y squared. Take 10y, take 6y, add 5. Okay, so that's correct. So 2y has to equal 1, so y equals a half, or 6y has to equal 5, 6y equals 5, so y equals 5/6. And then if you're just doing 1 to 12, this is your final one. You've got the difference of two squares here. Look, that's a square number, that's a square letter. So I square root, so that's going to be an 8. That's going to be an 8. And then I can do minus z, add z. And then, in fact, z has to be 8 or negative 8. So that's the first 12. So I have pushed you on quite quickly. You know, maybe with other groups, you might just do lots of those types for a whole lesson. So those that wanted extensions, I'm now moving on to 13 to 21. So let's see if anybody managed to get onto these. Okay, this one here, you can actually just divide by 2, and then you can actually just square root positive 2, negative 2. This one here, it's the difference of two squares. That's square, that's square, that's square. So I've got 4x, take 1, 4x, add 1. And then remember, that has to equal 1. That would have to equal minus 1. So I think x has got to be a quarter, or negative a quarter. These are a little bit harder, aren't they? This one's not too bad, actually. That one there, you rearrange it first, get it equal to 0, and then you just factorise this, which I don't think is too bad. Times together to make minus 14, add together to make 7. I make that x add 7, x take 2. And then, of course, you say x equals minus 7 or x equals 2. This one here, rearrange it again equal to 0. So this one's a little bit harder. Times in together to make minus 30, adding together to make 7, sorry. So I think that's got to be 10 and minus 3, and that's how you split up that middle term. I've got my working somewhere where I did that. 2x squared, add 7x. I think it turns into, let's have a look. That's going to work, that's going to work. I think this is right. Let's have a go. So 2x squared, add 10x, take 3. Yeah, so that works, doesn't it? 2x take 3, x add 5. That has to equal 3. So x has got to be 3 over 2 or 1.5, or x equals minus 5 there. Nearly there. Rearranging this one all equal to 0. So 2x squared, take 8x, take 10 equals 0. So these are a bit more tricky. Although I spotted on this one, you could have just divided by 2. And then that nicely factorises to x minus 5 and x add 1, which means x is 5 or x is minus 1. This one's a bit harder, isn't it? So you rearrange it, get it all equal to 0. 4x squared, take 29x, add 7 equals 0. And then you times 4 and 7 together to make 28. Times together to make 28. Add together to make minus 29. It sounds like it's got to be minus 28 and minus 1. So I can here I've got 4x squared take 28x take x add 7. I think I did this one earlier somewhere. So I think it turns out to be, what is it, 4x squared take 28x. So I can have there, I could take a 4x out. So I think I've got, is it x take 7, 4x take 1. Let's just check that one. 4x squared, take x, take 28. Good. So that was a bit harder, that one. So I made x equaling 7 or 4x equaling 1. So x is a quarter. Okay, so you can see I've got to think these through as well, some of these. So I'm going to move the 15y over. So we're back to a slightly easy one. Ties in together to make 56, adding together to make minus 15. I make that minus 7 and minus 8. So that was a bit easy, this one, wasn't it? Y is 7 then, or Y is 8. We are nearly there. Okay, on this next one, I want to keep generally my y squared positive. So imagine I've moved the 2y over, which would make that positive, and then moved that 63 over, which would make that negative. So that's the important line. And then that's fairly easy to factorise, I think, isn't it? It's got to be positive 9 and negative 7. Y squared, that sounds right, doesn't it? Okay, so that means that has to equal 0, which would make y minus 9, or this equals 0, which makes y 7. And I'm nearly there. Last one. Okay, so I've got 3x squared add 10x. I've moved the 8 across to get 0. Luckily, that's a prime number, so I know I need 3x and x. I've already got my x plus 4 there to remind myself what I did here. But again, you know, you'd do 3 times minus 8 is minus 24. So times together to make minus 24, add together to make 10. So you'd need to split that 10 up into 12 and minus 2. So I think I'm nearly there. 3x squared add 12x, take 2 like that. I think that works. 3x squared add 12x take 2x take 8 equals 0. Okay, so 3x is a 2. If 3x is a 2, x is 2/3, or x plus 4 is 0, so x is minus 4. Well done you if you managed to do these horrible hard ones. Well done. You've done really well. That's a lot to do in one lesson if you've got onto those hard ones. Okay.